All right. Good evening, everybody. I'm Linda Ziedrich, president of the Linn County Unit of the League of Women Voters of Oregon. I want to thank you all for joining us tonight. I also want to thank Amanda Crittenden and Sarah Andrews at the League of Women Voters for letting us use their Zoom account and setting up this webinar. Tony Vandermeer of South Albany High School for working with his students to develop questions for the candidates and working with me on all the details. And Brandon Johnson of South Albany High School for recruiting our moderator and helping to host this event. This is our first Zoom event, so I hope you'll be patient with any technical difficulties that we may have. For those of you unfamiliar with the League, I'll briefly explain who we are. The League of Women Voters grew out of the women's suffrage movement. The aim was to help women, once they had the vote, to use it wisely. The League's a nonpartisan organization that encourages the informed and active participation of citizens in government for the purpose of building better communities. Today, any citizen of voting age, regardless of sex, is welcome to join the League. We work at all levels of government. There's a national league, there are state leagues, and there are local leagues. We have an advocacy side. We have Oregon members who regularly sit in legislative hearings and testify about issues. But much of our work is strictly educational, like this forum. For more information about our local league unit, see our Facebook page at League of Women Voters of Linn County, Oregon. About half the questions for this forum have been prepared by South Albany students in modern US history courses taught by Tony Vandermeer. The rest have come from the public. We may have time for one or two more, so if you like, you can write one in the Q&A box, not the chat box, at the bottom of your screen. If you have questions or comments about technical problems or other matters, please write them in the chat box and we'll try to deal with them as they come in. At this point, I would like to introduce our moderator, Rena Howard. Rena is a senior at South Albany High School and one of the leaders of the school debate team. Rena will explain the structure of the event and then she'll introduce our two mayoral candidates. Thanks.
Tonight we will have 9 questions prepared by the students, followed by a short video about the debate class, followed by more questions from the public. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer each question, except for one, which will allow 3 minutes. There will be 1 minute for each candidate's closing statement. Our timekeeper is Greg Snyder. He'll interrupt to say 15 seconds when 15 seconds remain, and he'll sound a beep when the time is up. We'll alternate first responses, so the candidate who answers a question last answers the next question first. The candidate who answers the first question will also give the closing statement first, so that the one candidate doesn't have both the first word and the last word. I'd like to introduce Mrs. Sharon Canopa, Albany's current mayor, and her challenger, Mr. Alec Johnson, who is currently serving on the city council for Ward 2. Before coming on the air, a coin was flipped and it was determined that Mr. Johnson will answer the first question and we will alternate with each succeeding question. So let's get started with the questions. The organizers of tonight's debate generated this first question and gave it to the candidates in advance of tonight's forum. Please introduce yourself and explain why you want to be Albany's next mayor.
Hello, my name is Alex Johnson II. I've been here 26 years and I've served on the city council for just about 2 years. It'll be in January. I chose to run for mayor because I felt like Albany is ready for change. And people have reached out to me throughout my time as city council, asking me to run for mayor. And so at the 3rd or 4th meeting on city council, I decided I was going to run for mayor. And I started working with people and talking with constituents, talking with people all over the valley or the Albany about the change they like to see. And so doing that, I started coffee with the counselor at the senior center and started getting information and ideas and thoughts and feedback from people all over the city of Albany. And they've embraced me and they've encouraged me to run. They show me their support by either helping with my campaign or attending my town halls and donating to my campaign and also putting my yard signs and supporting me in my campaign. One of the things I found important about Albany is that all of Albany is important, not just certain segments of Albany. And so having said that, I'm looking forward to a nice campaign against the mayor I respect Sharon Canopa. I've known her for 25 years or 24 years since our kids went to St. Mary's and hers were leaving and mine were coming in. So I think this will be a good, healthy campaign, and we'll debate or whatever she'd like to do. I'm all for it, but I think Albany's ready for change, and I believe I'm that change.
Okay. Rena, are you ready?
Yes.
Yep. My name's Sharon Canopa, and I'm currently the mayor of Albany. I have been on the city council now. This is my 24th year and 12 years now as mayor. Why I decided to run for mayor 12 years ago, everything originally started sort of a good 25 years ago. I actually went to South Albany in the very early years. My husband and I both did. We graduated in 75. And I was actually on student council at Calapooya Middle School and at South Albany. Did I ever think I would be where I'm at today? No, I didn't back then. But Albany was such a fun place to be when I was a kid. And what happened in the 80s and 90s, the community kind of became very blighted. There was a lot of sprawl taking place, but yet our downtown and many areas of the town needed to be revitalized. So that's when I first ran for office, was in 96. And that was to be able to try to be able to bring the life back to the community. It was when I was young, in high school at a younger age. And I wanted to be able to get everything more, back revitalized and have a community that we all enjoy to live in. So that's been a lot of work. That started out with our urban renewal, and I want to be able to continue with that urban renewal plan to be able to finish the revitalization of Albany. What's happened since we started revitalizing in the core area, that has filtered to the whole community. So if you hadn't lived here, say 10, 15 years ago, you would really see that there's been a lot of change in the community.
15
So
seconds.
yeah, is that 2 minutes?
15 seconds.
Okay, yeah. And so with change, we will be having a lot of change. We've got 3 counselors that are leaving. I have never seen that many counselors leaving at one time in my 24 years with the city.
Second question.
So currently I'm not seeing anything on my screen. Is there a technical piece there? I'm not seeing anything.
Or heard the alarm.
Yeah. I think, Rena, I think you might have taken things off of, or nope, it came back on for Gally. Okay.
Are we good?
Yep. See you now.
Elizabeth Kay is a junior studying U.S. history at South Albany High and asked this question. What is more important, acting in response to the will of the people or acting in the way city officials believe is the best course of action?
That's a question for me.
Mrs. Canopa will be starting that question.
So actually, that's a great question, and they're both play out. What I've seen over the years is what you want for the will of the people. That's the way I've seen decisions being made, what is best for the city overall, and not so much for what the will of the people is. It ends up playing out that way. It all depends. Sometimes you might have a packed council chambers, and maybe that's not the direction the council goes. But and then it feels some folks there feel like, okay, they didn't listen to me. But listening and agreeing are 2 different things. So city council has to make a tough decision on what is best for the community overall and not just who is attending. Do need to keep in mind, as mayor, I rarely get to vote. The councilors are the ones that do most of the voting. The mayor just more presides over the meetings, and then that way be able to try to, help guide some policy. But the city council is the one that drives that policy. So we get accused of not listening and, to the public, but we do listen. But sometimes listening and agreeing are 2 different things. But we do have to look out for the community overall what can the city actually afford when it's certain policy type questions? So, but it's a very good question, but it's more the will of the people can help drive policy changes.
Thank
Can you
you.
repeat the question, please?
Elizabeth Kay is a junior studying U.S. history at South Albany High and asked this question. What is more important, acting in response to the will of the people or acting in the way city officials believe is the best course of action?
So there's a combination of both, because there's some decisions that are good for the will of the people that make sense for everyone in the city limits or that reside in the city of Albany. However, there are certain quasi-judicial issues that we have to deal with where the city council has to make that decision. As the mayor stated, that the mayor rarely votes unless there's a tie or there's going to be a veto because it was perceived as a wrong decision by the mayor or by the council. So one of the things I find important is that the mayor has to have the ability to work with the city councilors and discuss issues with them and be open and transparent with them. At present, I don't feel that is the case. And so when I sit up and I preside or sit up on a dais and I talk about or study an issue, I get input from the city staff, my constituents, my other city councilors, and I make my decision based on several levels of input from all over the city of Albany. And so I believe that there will be decisions made that are for the betterment of Albany by the city council, but ultimately the people in the city of Albany elect us to be that governing body. We have to work with our constituents, and we also have to work with each other to make the best decisions on the betterment of the city of Albany.
Thank you. This question is from Kellen, who is a junior at South Albany. If you receive a $1 million grant to use for the city any way you wanted, what would you do with it and why? Mr. Johnson?
So the first thing I would do is I would get with the city staff and find out where is the most need for the city of Albany. Right now we have an unhoused population that is struggling, it's growing, and I think that there should be some money allotted for that. The unhoused population in the city of Albany may get bigger. In the current pandemic, when rents are running out, unemployment's running out, rents are not being paid, the city has to look at the overall picture and make the best decision for those citizens. I would like to address with that $1 million, address the homeless issue. The unhoused have been neglected and they need attention. Supporting those nonprofits that do care for those the unhoused. One of the things I found out during this campaign is that certain organizations aren't even funded partially or impartially by the city. We need to fix that. So part of that $1 million will be going to those nonprofit organizations that support the unhoused population of our community. Thank
you. Mrs. Canopa?
So answering that question, that is a great question. And I remember when we received $20 million from a Pepsi settlement. So sometimes when you get grants, all of a sudden we'll have many people wanting to dip their hands into that pot. And that's what happened when we had our Pepsi settlement. What we spent on it, that I don't fully agree, but that was the council's choice that they had made. Today, if we had a $1 million grant, we are in one of the biggest budget deficits that I have ever seen with the city. We have rising population, but yet we have the revenues are not keeping up with the pace of keeping up with our level of service. The $1 million grant is something you don't want to immediately spend. You want to be able to see what's the best resource for that. And can you be able to utilize it in a way to have it be paid back or growing or evolving, a revolving type grant that we have done with some of our Pepsi proceeds. That way you're able to make some interest off of it. So right now, though, the biggest need within the community is the lack of resources we have to be able to even keep our Carnegie Library open. It's been a challenge even for our Maple Lawn. A lot of our, parks and recreation programs are really hurting. So it would be a council decision, but you would want to make sure that you go through a process to be able to get the input from the public and be able to get the input from staff and everyone to make sure you're utilizing that the best way you can for the community.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
The organizers of tonight's debate generated this question and have extended the answer time to 3 minutes each. This question was given to the candidates in advance of tonight's forum. Given there has been recent media coverage and increased interest in the topic, What is your position on the future of the Human Relations Committee? Mr. Johnson?
So the Human Relations Commission is a very, very important commission for the city of Albany. The Human Relations Commission is a commission used to unify the city's different cultures, ethnicities, and if it is essential for the Human Relations Commission to continue. What you've seen in the media was a series of mistakes that happened. I spoke with the reporter about the issue. She wrote the article and the copy editor put the title out there, and it started a firestorm. And the city councilors, I work with them, the ones that refused or decided not to appoint someone, because they wanted the new city councilors, because there is a turnover, like the mayor mentioned, that why would they put somebody in place for 2 months and then the city councilor coming on and have to replace them with somebody they want on that particular, that on the Human Relations Commission. I believe the Human Relations Commission is essential to the harmony in the city of Albany, and I believe that we should continue it. It's going to continue in January when things are back, when the new councilors are aboard and they start the new council. And I believe that in my heart of hearts is that it's one of the most necessary commissions that we have as a citizens advisory group. It's very important that everyone knows Albany is a safe place to live. Albany is a welcoming place to live, and Albany is an accepting place to live. I've been here 26 years and I love this city. I chose not to live in Corrales because Albany was a better fit for my family and I. So Human Relations Commission has my full support.
Thank you. Ms. Canopa?
So the Human Relations Commission, I fully agree with Councilor Johnson. And so I was a part of its establishment back actually before I became mayor. I was city council then. And I've seen it sort of become where over the years, there wasn't as much agenda items. You didn't have as much activity, but they have been such a valuable resource for our community. All of the volunteers that have served on that commission, they get out there and they help to be the voice of the community, you know, for diversity and for inclusiveness. And they have, it's been wonderful for the programs that they've supported. It's been wonderful for what they have been able to be a great outreach. They supported the Festival Latino. You know, I attended every event of Festival Latino. It's just a fun event for Albany. The city council doesn't have time to be able to be a part of all of our boards and commissions. We have 20, so that's where these volunteers are very important. We're kind of in a little bit of a hiccup this year, you know, by having a little hurdle to get over with a little bit of divisiveness, but we will get over it. And I'm really looking forward to the commission getting back up to speed in January and being able to make sure, you know, being able to be there for the community. So it will continue. I guarantee the Human Relations Commission will. This is just sort of some issues we had to kind of get through, but it has been a very valuable resource for community. We get the word out there, you know, about anything towards hate is not acceptable in our community. It's just very, it's challenging to reach out to everyone. But we have all come out forward saying that any sort of racism or hatred towards anybody is not acceptable in our community. So I'm proud of what the Human Relations Commission has been able to accomplish over the years. They've done a fantastic job and we'll get through this, the little challenges we had this year. Thank you.
This question comes from Erica B. What is the most important issue you plan to address? Ms. Canopa?
So the most important issue, probably first step, would be getting back up and running, you know, the Human Relations Commission. But right now we have the biggest issue, which is budget. And that's probably a very boring issue for the South Albany students, but we have some challenging times ahead. We've been having to lay off a lot of staff the last few years. Also, you know, it's going to really be hitting our public safety, our parks department, and our library. So we're going to be probably spending a lot of time the first 6 months of you know, 2021 in dealing with our budget. We established a biennium budget, so it's every 2 years. So that was a year and a half ago, was the first time that we implemented that. for the biennium budget. So that will be finishing this fiscal year, which would be in the end of June. So that's our biggest challenge right now. We do have some, our urban renewal that we're working on. It's sort of kind of finalizing the plan, and that is working on our waterfront. So that's going to be keeping us busy the first 6 months, and even currently now. What is the scope of that project? So none of that has been finalized. That is a project that has been citizen driven too. That is where we brought in the community to have them shape how they want the riverfront to be. So it's kind of exciting project, and something that I really hope that the students kind of get involved with also.
Mr. Johnson?
So the biggest concern I have right now for the city of Albany is surviving this pandemic with the least amount of loss of life as possible. We have to keep our community safe. We have to keep our unhoused population safe. We have to keep our precious seniors safe. Our community is fragile. We have COVID-19 going on. We have an economic crisis going on, and we have a budget that's in disarray. And Mayor's right, we have to fix the budget. And how we do that is, one, is listen to our constituents and listen to the city of Albany. We have to develop ideas and creative ideas to move the city forward. So that's not just the city council, it's your voice, the city's voice. The people that live here need to share their ideas with us so we can work through them and work with our own to figure out what's the best path forward. And second to that, I'm really concerned about the cost of housing in the city of Albany. At present, houses cost $191 per square foot. So we're pricing our young people out of the city. So we have to develop more housing, whether it be infill or growing the city, growing the urban growth boundary, working with the county and coming up with solutions to grow the city. Because if we don't, there's gonna be a bunch of old folks walking around Albany and not enough young people. We need young families with children that can fill our schools. We need people that want to come here and work. And we also need to bring corporations here. We need to recruit corporations to come to the city of Albany and put down roots. There's going to be here 30, 40 years. So your grandchildren will have a place to stay when they come to town and visit grandma. We're making decisions for your children right now and your grandchildren, and you have no voice. And we'd like you to come out. I would like you personally to come out and get involved with the city council. Come to a commission meeting or join a commission. I've been working hard to get young people to join our city council meeting or come to our meetings, and also joining our commission.
15 seconds.
And so three or four things are my mission. One is we got to keep the city safe. Public service, our safety is important. But I want to survive this pandemic with the least amount of loss of life as possible. And also start the economic recovery of the city of Albany by bringing in business and building more housing for people to come here, to stay here also.
A number of students at South had a version of this question. What needs to happen to help with the homeless situation? Mr. Johnson?
So I'm glad you asked that question. So since I've been on council, I have been looking at different cities and what solutions they're putting in place. I know in Detroit, they built some tiny home communities for veterans. I know I was taken by Stacey Bartholomew down to Emerald Village down in Eugene. They have some great tiny villages down there in transitional housing. So we need to figure out a way to help them up, not a handout, but a hand up. And another thing is I've looked at other cities and how they've employed the homeless and unhoused to stencil sidewalks, the curb that says your address number, to pick up trash, to collect debris and take it to the recycling centers. Albany needs to look at those programs and say, what can we make fit for the city of Albany? We also need to come up with shelters or develop shelters that have the right safety, the right mental health, the right behavioral health, dental, and basic medical clinics. Because if we don't, it's going to continue to get worse. And I know that people are saying to themselves, well, not in my neighborhood, not in my backyard. But it's everybody's opportunity to step up and help those people that need our help.
Ms. Canopa?
Okay, when it comes to homelessness, I know probably anybody, if they're watching this, they're going to say, oh, Sharon's never going to be able to do that in 2 minutes. But so I've been very active over homeless issues over the years. The homeless we have today is not the homeless we had, say, when we had Camp Boondoggle back in '06. So I did write sort of a homeless story, and it's on my personal website. It's 2 parts, but it's about close to 27, 28 pages long. So if you're ever bored, you can read it. And it starts out actually when I was even a kid here in Albany. So we had homeless back when I was a kid. We will never totally solve homelessness. We'll never be able to fully, stop homelessness. It's always been around. We could get every homeless person today into housing, and then the next day somebody could be homeless, or they come into our community homeless. So it's sort of it's a continuous in progress type issue to be able to address. But if you notice, Albany does not have the amount of homeless as other communities, mostly our size, and that is because of what we have been doing over the years with the very proactive programs and making sure that we get the homeless into housing and not enable someone to stay homeless. Albany does have shelters. We have 2 shelters. Corvallis doesn't even not have a full year-round shelter like we have had. They're finally starting up getting a shelter. The same with Corvallis. Albany has been very ahead of the curve when it comes to addressing homeless issues. And I understand it'd be great to be able to employ every
15
homeless. There's
seconds.
not the city funds to be able to employ the homeless too. So, but as I stated, I can go on a long time, but thank you.
Aleli is a junior at South, a member of the debate team, and asks, certain areas of Albany look very neglected. How can we improve the city's visual appeal without driving low-income people out of their homes and neighborhoods? Mrs. Canopa.
Okay, so I would love to talk with the student and really kind of see their ideas. That's a part of even urban renewal. That's sort of what I talked about when I was in the 80s and 90s, how downtown Albany and a lot of areas in our whole urban renewal district, it goes from like Elm clear over to Gary. We're very blighted, and that was urban renewal to be able to revitalize it. So it looks a lot better and a lot more improved today than what we had in the past. But a lot of it is we do stay on top of it when it comes to a lot of areas that need to be improved. I don't know if you even noticed Woodwind Apartments. It took me 18 years working on that to be able to get that property revitalized. It had 22 very dilapidated substandard housing for people to live in. And I always knew people should not have to live in those conditions. And we all worked on that project to be able to get good housing, and it was low income housing for people to have a better standard of living. So there is some other areas that we were working on. There might be one area that looks fine today, but maybe in 5 years it might not be. But driving up the cost, that's sort of another whole issue that there's no way that I can to be able to make things more affordable. I can't do that in the 2 minutes here, but I would love to. I could take up a whole forum on that, for where the cost of housing and what drives up that cost. City government does not drive up the cost of housing. That is done by the free market. We don't have control of what somebody's going to sell their house for. So that part we don't have. Thank you.
Ask the question again, please, Rena.
Certain areas of Albany look very neglected. How can we improve the city's visual appeal without driving low-income people out of their homes and neighborhoods?
So one of the ways we can do that is empowering people in low-income situations to, one, take care of their own communities, but also we spend a lot of money renovating buildings downtown. We can spend some of that money cleaning up neighborhoods. And I know it's part of the urban renewal district, but there's funds that we can get from the federal government for improving the urban areas of our city, or the less fortunate areas of our city. And I don't believe pricing people out of the market's the way to do that. One of the things I do know is that we need more for reasonably priced housing. And if we can do that, those low income people that do start to rise up out of that poverty, they can buy those lower priced homes and create the inventory churn that we need in the city of Albany, so people have places to live, not just in apartments, but actual homes to live in. And so I believe that if we take the time and create a task force on housing, we get with the industry, we get with the builders, we get with the real estate markets and mortgages, and then in local organizations, we can come up with ways to create livable communities for people that have low income situations going on, which is unfortunate in the richest nation in the world. We can work together, and it's a community solution, not just a city council solution. So engaging young people like yourselves, your ideas, older people, middle-aged people, people in their 30s and 40s, in conversations about how do we make this better for everyone in the city of Albany, not just the rich and the middle income. I think that the smaller homes, two bedroom, one car garage, is something that would be attractive to somebody buying their first home. I bought my first home at 19 years old. It wasn't the greatest home in the world, but it was my first home. And so a lot of people aren't that fortunate. But here's the deal: if we don't do something about housing now, 5 years from now, you're not going to have a place to live in Albany, because rent for a two-bedroom apartment runs about $1,300 a month right now. And so we need to figure out a way to help low-income people rise
15
up.
seconds.
We also need to find a way for young people to stay at home and stay in the city of Albany, because if not, this is going to be a ghost town in 15, 20 years.
Thank you. U.S. history student Jordan S. asked, what's more important for a city right now? Building new homes and commercial space, or rehabbing, expanding, better utilizing our existing homes and storefronts? Mr. Johnson.
I think both are equally important, because we want to keep our downtown and our older homes, the ones that are savable, the ones that won't cost more than the cost of the house to repair. I think the ones we can repair and upgrade, we should do. But we also need more homes for people, like, for example, young people that are getting married or leaving school with jobs, for their first jobs. They have a place that they can call their own. We also need a place that, I'll give you an example. And when I moved into my neighborhood in 1990, well, 2000, I was in my 30s. Now I'm in my 50s, I'm 55, and my neighbors in their 60s and 70s and 80s. They can't use their upstairs anymore. So if we had a way to have somebody move up and buy their home, and they can step down and buy a smaller home, then it creates the inventory to change, and also keeps the cost per square foot down. So we save the houses we can save. We build affordable, reasonably priced housing, so we can keep the inventory turning. So it will keep our young people home. It'll give our older folks, seniors, the ability to move down and sell their home to somebody that's on the rise, or incomes are growing. And so I think both are important, but I think neither one should be neglected by anyone.
Mrs. Canopa.
Okay, so there's sort of a balance that's needed when it comes to housing, but I love the question, because that's why I got involved 25 years ago with the city. And because we were sprawling out, as I said earlier, and yet the existing housing stock we had was deteriorating, becoming very blighted. And when you get blighted, that increases crime too. So revitalizing is very important. Rehabbing existing housing stock is very important to utilize that. That lessens sprawl. The more sprawl you have in your city, every city, is just taking up farm and forest lands. So we want to make sure we're utilizing the land in a good, responsible manner, and that is to have well-managed growth. So well-managed growth would be making sure your existing stock is being habitable, with a good standard of housing. And then when you're sprawling, making sure that it is good livable neighborhoods, and neighborhoods that are going to be able to be well managed in the future, to be able to fit in with your transportation system, making sure that you're going to have the parks to support it, making sure that you're going to have the amenities for every neighborhood to be able to have a good livable community to live in, and walkable neighborhoods too. So there's sort of the balance there that's needed, but it's very, very important to make sure your existing housing stock, you're able to stay up on keeping it rehabbed. And we do have many programs, even for low income, to rehab their home through our community development block grant funding. So we kind of partner with Dev Northwest. And so we do have grants out there to help people that are in very low income, that need to have a new roof on their house, or need to be able to have better plumbing to make their housing more livable. Thank you.
This question comes from Bailey S., who is a student in modern U.S. history. With Albany's rapid population growth, do you have any plans to improve traffic flow in our city?
Oh, that's it. Am I first on this one? I can't remember.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, I thought so. Okay. Very good question. And mostly before COVID, when things were shut down, I tell you, that was one of the biggest complaints that I received all the time, was over the transportation system and the amount of traffic that we were receiving. Now, people in Portland would laugh at us in Albany complaining about traffic. So Portland and, of course, Salem, Eugene have it a lot worse than we do. But that's probably one of the biggest issues, would be from trying to get over the bridges. So with that is sort of kind of the way the planning has been. The city cannot, when somebody has their land that is zoned for a certain type of zoning, you can't prevent that property owner from selling and building housing. But the more growth and the rapid growth that is brought into question does put more demand on our services. And it's not just transportation, that's police and fire. It puts more demand on our, public works department and our libraries and all school system. It puts more demand. Growth does not pay for itself. And I have seen it, and I've said, prove me wrong. I've seen it over the years that we have never been able to keep up with the cost of growth. That is something that I really think the younger generation needs to be really focused on is, how are we going to be able to make it more population growth and housing growth be more sustainable and for sustainable services. So it's a very good question. I'd love to have a whole forum just on housing
15 seconds.
and what that cost of growth is on that. So thank you.
Marina, would you please repeat the question?
With Albany's rapid population growth, do you have any plans to improve traffic flow in our city?
Well, the first thing I'm going to do as your mayor is to talk with each department head, specifically our planning department and our road streets department, public works department, and see if they have existing plans to improve traffic flow. And the second thing we'll do, if we don't, then we need to look at putting together a strategy to inspect or analyze how traffic flow goes. I know at some point we're going to need another bridge across the Willamette River. Where's that going to go? I don't know, but I've traveled to West Salem enough to know that we're going to need another bridge across Albany at some point. The mayor said for the future, the young people need to look into that or plan for that. Well, if we don't have houses for them to live in, they're not going to live here. So just be us doing the same thing. So we need to get out of the cycle of not growing because of costs. We need to figure out how to get corporations here. We need to figure out how to do a better job with SD system development charges, which is the fees to connect to the city services. We also need to figure out a way to, one, either route traffic around or make it easier to come through 20 or 99 to the other arteries coming to the city and other highways. I think we need to be proactive about it. So we should have started 20 years ago or 10 years ago. And so going forward, our job is to get ahead of the game, or at least be more proactive in developing schematically ways to route traffic through the city and around the city, put in the traffic controls. But Mayor Konopa is correct. A property owner can do what they want with their property. And so either the city has to come up with ways working with ODOT to develop traffic systems that make sense for the city of Albany.
Thank you. And now we'll have a short break to present a video about the South Albany Speech and Debate Team.
My name's Rena Howard, and I'm currently a captain of the competitive speech and debate team here at South Albany, a class that I believe you all should join. Why? Well, today we have a few team members here to explain to you how you could benefit from speech and debate.
The environment of our class is different from a lot of other classes, particularly because we're all speech kids, we all like to talk, so sometimes a little loud. The rumors are true. We are loud. It's loud. It's fun. It's definitely loud. Though we may seem loud and intimidating, everyone is welcoming and fun and friendly. And speech and debate is a place where anyone can find a place to belong.
And I've never felt as unjudged as I was.
You're gonna come in here and you're gonna meet people you don't even know. By the end of the month, some of them will be your closest friends.
Everyone welcomed you, then warm hearted to speak, and it felt like you were really wanted there.
I've never felt that at home on my first day.
If you're looking just for an activity to get into in high school, just to find a group or whatever, I think that is a really good option for that.
Even though we're a bunch of little people in little business suits and look super serious, the amount of fun that comes out of the speech and debate environment is just crazy. Like you're all in a group together. Everything is like hilarious, like 10 times funnier. Speech and debate is hard work, but at the end of the day, it's always a lot of fun and the bonding is not unforgettable.
It is so worth it because you're going to gain so much confidence, not only in yourself, but in your speaking abilities. debate also really helped build my confidence when it came to job interviews or interviews for scholarships or even just college application interviews.
I'm no longer scared to speak in public.
I got better at presenting and just being more confident and talking to different people.
I feel like I love talking over people now.
I'm not afraid to be myself anymore.
It will push you out of your comfort zone. You will be made to do new things and grow as a person.
I don't think I would have ever run for class office or even the student body president.
Speech debate gave me confidence in public speaking and taught me that my voice matters.
My favorite thing about the class is how bonded you get with everyone. Everyone's just so connected.
What makes it fun is that we are like a family.
We treat each other like family because we really are family.
Definitely a family.
The team is a whole big family.
It's a family.
You'll hear that a lot, but it's true.
It doesn't matter what you look like, where you come from, what you believe in. The moment you walk in those doors, you're part of our family.
I would just like to say that this class is everything to me, and I owe it so much. Most importantly, is like it's my second family. I don't know what I would do without this class, and it brings me so much joy. Like it's the place where at school I'm able to just go and be myself.
So you should take a chance.
Just walking in and just laughing automatically, like getting a sense of welcoming. Like everyone is accepted in such a way, so join in.
Speech and debate truly is an amazing thing to be a part of. I've come a long way from being a freshman looking up to my senior mentors to now being that mentor for other people. Just remember, when you're forecasting, to put down competitive speech and debate as one of your life goals.
Well done.
Yep, well done. I couldn't hear some of the students very well, but great job.
Thank you. Now we'll continue questions. Considering the recent racist incidents that have happened in Albany, and in light of the national conversation about racial injustice, please outline what specific actions you will take to promote anti-racism in Albany and ensure that Albany is an inclusive community for all. Mr. Johnson.
Oh, I'm glad you asked me that question. Since the protest that was held in downtown Albany, I've been reached several hundred people have reached out to me in various times since then to have just community conversations and just to sit and talk about the situation. We actually had a Black family picnic barbecue set up to invite the Albany Police Department out without their uniforms and the community to come out and just get to know one another. Of course, COVID kind of crashed that party. But one of the things that I have done since then is that since the day of the protest, from the very next day to that night, people have reached out to me to sit down and talk, just to get to know me, get to know who I am. And some even agreed to speak with my godsons that spoke at the actually at the protest before everything started. So I think people being willing right now to be uncomfortable around race, and people are having meaningful conversations about race. And I've been invited to churches that coming up in the future to sit down and talk with congregations about their feelings about race. Race is always going to be a hard conversation. But the thing about it is, I think America, at least I know Albany, is ready to have conversations around race. Diversity, inclusion, acceptance. We have to stop using the word tolerance. Tolerance is unacceptable. It's acceptance. I'm just as American as any other man in the city of Albany. I employ people. I'm a veteran. I'm a public servant. I'm a community servant. I volunteer. What makes anyone more American than I am? And so my flag hangs in front of my house just like everyone else's. So I think what we need to do is we need to put together, the HRC needs to put together events where it brings the community together. We can have education around race. We can have
15 seconds.
We can have education about being uncomfortable, because it's okay to talk about race. It is absolutely okay. This community is made up of many cultures, but it's okay for those cultures to get together and just talk about their differences and accept one another for who they are.
Okay, very good question. And I've seen over the years that we've had issues that are brought up. So it has brought the conversation back up. We did have an incident that happened in Albany that was very unfortunate during one of our events. And so the city council did kind of adopt a resolution to really state that any sort of racism is not acceptable in Albany. And then we didn't have any incidents come up. And then till more recently, we had a few, but more recently this year. And So our police department has started up, our new police chief is kind of a citizen committee, and it's to be able to have that conversation over racism and diversity. And I think this is a great starting point, so we can be able to really be able to find what can we do as a community. The city council did support the Human Relations Commission, another resolution showing that it is not acceptable in our community. We can't demand somebody to have that, to stop that sort of thoughts in their mind. I mean, and words, because it is freedom of speech. The only thing I have done over the last 12 years is every time out, being able to speaking at groups and welcoming groups to Albany, tourism groups at events, is always to say that we're a loving and caring community, and we're respectful for everyone. And I think the more we can get that message out in our community, that's who we are in Albany. So we are very, very caring community, but any sort of racism, hatred is not acceptable, and it's not welcome in our community. The enforcement piece to that is very challenging, but the conversation can continue, and with the HRC, we'll be able to really get the word out more. So thank you.
In accordance with the national movement to shift funding from police to social services, should Albany divert some police responses to other agencies? Are these other agencies prepared for such a change? Mrs. Canopa.
Not quite clear on your question. So, so what's the intent? The intent there is to basically to divert funding from our police. Is that what you're asking?
I can restate the question.
Yeah, restate that.
In accordance with the national movement to shift funding from police to social services, should Albany divert some police responses to other agencies? Are these other agencies prepared for such a change?
Okay, so other agencies, they must be referring to outside agencies, not the city of Albany's programs in. Defunding, that would be kind of what the big movement is for defunding the police. It's not fair to what actions that have taken place with other police departments to reflect on our Albany Police Department. If we reduce much more funding, as we've had to the last few years because of our budget, we're going to lose so much. We will end up losing our own internal type police patrol, or a lot of our outreach that we do. It would be a detriment on our community. And the more, if you're going to defund the police, reduce services, I guarantee it's probably going to increase crime too. Our community wants to be safe. We currently do not even have enough that we should be fully funding our police department with such a growing population. We are not keeping up pace with our population. So it would not and mostly to divert city funds off to another outside agency. Those agencies are able to pick up other resources through other programs. A lot of people don't realize city services programs is your basic infrastructure. It's our streets, it's our police, our fire, our water, our sewer. It's our parks and recreation programs and library. The social service programs are usually with the county or the state. So that's not city services. So we wouldn't want to be doubling up on programs or to be diverting the funds off to the other programs. We currently can't. We actually do not even have enough funding currently to be able to keep our programs full like we should for our community. So thank you.
Mr. Johnson?
Can you ask that question again, please? It's very quiet.
In accordance with the national movement to shift funding from police to social services, should Albany divert some police responses to other agencies? Are these other agencies prepared for such a change?
So first and foremost, I don't think that's the national mandate, moving money from police departments away from public safety. I think the term defunding is a terrible political football, and nobody wants to shortcut our police department, our fire department. Public safety is one of our most important things to do, to maintain as a city council. Like our Constitution says, the United States Congress will maintain the Navy. Our police department is our public safety arm. Now, I don't mind talking about reimagining policing, My mother was a police officer in the state of California, sworn in 1961. In our police department, they had community policing. I would like to see our police department demilitarized, and it's not like it is really demilitarized, but a lot of police departments across the nation are militarized. And so I want our police officers to be connected to our community, coming to events out of uniform, attending softball games out of uniform. Because if we take them into our family, we'll be part of their family. So I think we should humanize each other, which makes us all safer in the long run. And then we can figure out ways to those other organizations, like the mayor was saying, there's public money out there. There's federal money grants, there's federal loans, there's federal opportunities for them. Now, are there some organizations we should look at helping? But taking that money directly from the police department would be a misuse of public safety funds. And I don't think that's fair to the police department, public service, or fire department, and the staff and the city. So public safety is important. It's utmost important because our population is growing. But I think defunding the police department is a bad choice of words. I think reimagining would be a better choice of words. But we as a citizenry, we need to connect with our police department. Every time I see one, I wave. Every time I see one in the store, I say hi.
15 seconds.
We need to connect them to us, and they need to connect. We need to connect to them. And I think we do that by being part of their family, and they'll become part of ours.
Do you favor the council's imposing a monthly utility fee to support city services such as parks and libraries? Or would you prefer that any such proposal go before the voters? Mr. Johnson.
Well, I voted on this twice already. I'm opposed to a unilateral decision by the city council to go in somebody's pocket and take their money. Now, when the mayor first brought it up in our budget committee meetings last year, I was opposed to it then, and I'm opposed to it now. I believe that we as a city council, we should ask the voters to support it, but we also have to have the tools to back it up. Why do we need to do this? We need to prove to you why we need to do this. We need public hearings so we can tell you and explain to you why we need it. If you see the numbers, and you go to the vote and say, you know what, we really need to bolster this up by doing this, then I'm fine with it. But for me, it has to go to the voters, because there's 55,000 plus people in the city of Albany, and 7 of them shouldn't tell you how to spend your money.
So when it comes to this issue, when it comes to, say, property, anything that's property taxes, that by law has to go to the voters. When it is a utility fee, no, it doesn't. We have had our utility fee for public works has never gone to the voters. It does not have to by law. If you this is a decision that is a hard decision, and that is why you elect your decision makers to make that decision. If a person does not want any type of fee whatsoever, you need to make sure you're voting the right way. The piece to this, our community is that we need new revenue sources, or we're going to be laying off more of police and fire and library and parks. That is the reality. So it's either the only solution is, because we can't go for more property taxes because we're in compression already. And our property taxes do not even fully fund police and fire. So it takes all other revenue sources in order to be able to provide all the programs we do with the city. So if we imposed a utility fee to go to the voters is a whole different ball game. Who's going to run that campaign? Who's going to do that campaign? City staff has to be totally out of it whenever it comes to a campaign. In the past, when it's been the police and fire levy since 2002, I've been the one that has been the manager over that and campaign manager for that campaign. So going to the voters for a utility fee is kind of an easy way out for counselors to have that question be able to be answered. And I guarantee it would not pass. Then what are you going to do? Then you are stuck without any revenue sources, and you're going to be stuck with laying folks off. So those decisions are tough, but that is something, it's a legislative decision, and that's what council members are elected to do, is to make those decisions. I have another option for that, but I'm out of time now on what we could do on that fee. So
thank you. As the coronavirus necessitates city budget cuts, what services will you fight to preserve?
So far, I think, do I lead on this one? I think it's
your question.
Yeah.
As the coronavirus necessitates city budget cuts, what services will you fight to preserve?
So we have had some, budget cuts that have already been taken place because of the coronavirus. And what we've done is there's been a lot of kind of hours cut, city hall cut. We've had some staffing, but we've actually been able to, that's where we're at for, I talked about our budget coming up this next spring, is looking at what is those projections going to be for the next 2 years? How are we going to be able to get that budget balanced? So we could be faced with more cuts, which we most likely will be. And that's where the utility fee is that one option to be able to minimize those cuts. But the coronavirus itself, we've been able to pick up some grant money. We've been able to pick that up through our economic development department and community development block grant to be able to assist people that are really impacted, businesses and individuals from the coronavirus. But the actual coronavirus has not impacted the city as much when for what we're faced with on our budget currently on that.
Mr. Johnson?
So, and I agree with the mayor that COVID-19 hasn't impacted us as drastically as it has other cities with larger population bases. I think that one way to look at this whole thing is where are we going from X point, say it's July of next year or January of the next year. And we need to go revisit those revenue generating ideas we came up with earlier last year and see what ones makes the most sense for the city of Albany. If we have to vote on a tax, vote on a fee, then I think the people in Albany are smart enough to pick the one that best suits us. For example, I did a research on a sugary drink tax. I got a lot of blowback, but there's other cities that implemented well. Ironically, one of the cities that have a great program is Albany, California. They're half the size of Albany, and they generated $990,000 for their general fund by using that tax. Now, is it better to have a fee that impacts just the people that live here, or is it better to have a tax that impacts everybody that visits here? A friend of mine, one of my clients, is a retired federal tax economist, and he said it's the only fee that will be paid when the city of Albany is asleep because of I-5 and 34. It's a traffic corridor. People pull over all the time to buy a sugary drink. 3 mochas here, some monster drinks. So it'd be 1 penny per ounce, and while we're asleep, people are paying that bill. So I think there's ways for us to raise money. We just need to be more creative and make it happen. I think that the grant money that the federal government and state governments provided our business owners has been helpful, but at some point that's going to run out. And when it runs out, the city council and our partners need to figure out ways to make
15 seconds.
Ultimately, there's no right answer, but if we don't start looking at possible solutions, we're going to find ourselves in a lot of trouble. And I'm willing to sit down with business, with industry, with teachers, with whomever would like to offer ideas and share those ideas, put them on a big piece of paper and talk about it.
This will be our final question. Would you favor Albany's becoming a Second Amendment sanctuary city that is refusing to respect or enforce state and federal laws intended to prevent gun violence, such as universal background checks and extreme risk protection orders?
Is that for me?
Yes.
So the Constitution gives every United States citizen the right to keep and bear arms. That's as far as we need to go. Sanctuary city for gun owners, then for me, it's problematic because if you have illegal weapons, we're not giving you sanctuary. If you have legally obtained and licensed weapons, you can have them by the Constitution. So making a specific proclamation about it is something that I feel should not happen and will not happen. And I believe the mayor supports that because I can legally own a firearm right now because I'm not a felon and I've never used a gun in any crime or anything like that. So why would I need special protection as a legal gun owner in the city of Albany? I think that we have to believe that people that own firearms are being smart with them, locking them up at night to protect their families. But however, in our society, it is legal under the Second Amendment to own a weapon. It should not be a sanctuary city for that.
So good question. Almost forgot about this one question because that was something that we had really a lot of citizen participation in, a lot of comments. And so we had a counselor that had wanted to bring this up and have it be as a sanctuary city. Resolutions, and it was going to be a resolution. So resolutions are one that pretty much can get buried in an archive. Nobody might not even be able to remember that we did it, say 5 years later. So there's really kind of no enforcement to it. We have federal laws that protect gun rights. And I think that's all that we need to do is just follow what there is for the federal laws for that. When it came up, I was very disheartened because I was worried that what kind of message was this going to send for Albany? And I think I have my cat trying to come up here. So what kind of message? I mean, it was like almost like, okay, put a billboard up that, okay, we're a gun-loving city. It's like, I didn't want that for Albany. So I'm glad that that resolution didn't go anywhere. Everybody has the rights to own guns and we're not stopping that. But we don't need to have a resolution stating that we're a sanctuary city for that Second Amendment. We will follow federal laws on that. So I was kind of glad that the issue just sort of went away and was not pursued any farther on that. But we did have a lot of good input from citizens. And that sort of goes back to that first question, that will of the voters. And that's a time that, yeah, we did listen, you know, and we did, we've always listened, but we did act on the will of the voters. And we did not, the council did not support that resolution.
For the closing comments, we'll start with Mr. Johnson because he started us off. So Mrs. Canopa gets the last word. Mr. Johnson, what closing statements would you like to make?
Well, as mayor, I will work with the city council to be an open, receptive, attentive, and transparent city council. I will work with the city councilors. I will meet with them on a regular basis to understand them initially and to work with them on questions they may have of me as mayor. Also, the citizens of the city of Albany will have access to me. I will have coffee with the mayor events, coffee discussions with the mayor events at local venues around the city. I've done it as city councilor and they were well attended. A lot of great questions came out of it and it made me a better city councilor by connecting with the people in the city of Albany. Now, Ward 2 is my ward. However, it's people from all over.
15 seconds.
So as your mayor, I will be attentive, I'll be responsive, and receptive to conversations about the city of Albany and the city of Albany's future.
Okay. And thank you. And I really thank the students for allowing us to be able to have this opportunity. But no, I would want to be, would be honored to be able to continue as mayor. I've devoted my life to Albany in serving, and it is a volunteer position. But also, one thing I want to clarify: it's the council president's duty to be able to be kind of coming up with the policy changes, you know, for the council. They're the ones to be working with the council. The mayor more presides over the meetings and is able to, you know, be able to weigh in on the discussion when it comes to cerwant policies. But that's up to the council president on that. But with that, I want to thank you so much, and I want to be able to, you know, I'm always open. Everybody knows that I'll always listen, and I'm always there at any time. So for the public, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson and Mrs. Canopa, and thank you everyone for joining us this evening. Please join us again next Thursday at 7 for the Albany City Council Forum. Good night.
Night. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rena. Great job.
Yep. Thank you,
everybody.
Lena.
Yes,
Yep.
good job.
Thank you.